Hey guys, my name is Ryan and welcome to HitScan. It's been almost a week since Baptiste got the buffs that went straight to live. They weren't even on the PTR. Those buffs being the recovery being decreased from 0.45 seconds to 0.36. We'll talk about that in a second. He also had the form of random spread on his gun removed, and also his damage fall off range was increased to 25 meters instead of 20. This video is about how these changes make Baptiste one of, if not the best support to play at the moment. There are a few caveats and a few situations where you can't play him, but that's the difference between, the competitive pro scene and the ladder game that we all play at the moment. And I think there's certain situations that if they happen in our competitive games, makes Baptiste the best healer ban on, and you should definitely run him. It almost feels at this point as free SR, honestly. And there's a very solid reason as to why. Going over the stats, you can see how much of an impact that these changes have made already. Like I said, it's only been a week, but looking over literally all of the different ranks, you can see a big surge in his popularity. Definitely more around the likes of Master, Diamond, Platinum, and anything that isn't GM, but I'd be lying if I said that there's been no impact in the higher tiers too. Like I just mentioned, the big changes around Baptiste come to the damage that he does. And you really don't look at the damage that a support hero does as being highly impactful. So why does this change Baptiste in any capacity really? Well, I think we first need to highlight how much damage Baptiste does now, because it's surprisingly quite a lot. Firing 3 shots in 0.2 seconds, each of which did 25 damage, 75 in total, would then used to have a recovery time of 0.45 seconds. Like I said, this was buffed. That 0.5 seconds was reduced to 0.36. In short, Baptiste used to do 150 DPS, but now does about 134 total. So his DPS output has gone up by 20, which is a good portion. In layman's terms, it's almost like it gives Baptiste another shot in his gun. What does this mean? Baptiste puts out hella damage. I'm not even kidding. He is a monster in the right hands, and looking at previous metas and how stuff used to work, if you can pay attention to the enemy's team, you can pick Baptiste, be really strong, and win games, hands down, in the right situation. The only problem is it requires teams to kinda run off meta. What do I mean by that? Well, we need to look at the supports that are really popular right now. And these, much like everything else, is dictated by the tank meta. The main tanks are Orisa and Sigma, and the support lineup on those teams, the majority of teams at least, is Moira Lucio. The reason is because both of these heroes aren't really negated by barriers at all. If you're trying to run Junkrat or Ana or just any hero that's trying to break down a barrier, you realistically can't do it unless you're running Bastion. The enemy Orisa puts down her shield, you break it, the Sigma puts out his, you break it, Orisa gets her barrier off cooldown. There's just no way, so you pick heroes that bypass that. Not only do you have Lucio and Moira that I just mentioned, but that's why Doomfist is played, that's why Reaper is played, that's why May's played, just to get past that threshold of where the double barriers are placed and be a bit more aggressive. Moira has a damage obs, she also has coalescence, which is good there, and Lucio could just dip either side of barriers to be able to heal up his team. So running Baptiste in a double barrier meta just isn't very optimal. You can't break down the barriers, and if the enemy team is any good, they will just block you off from doing healing. So what does this have to do with Baptiste at all? But let's go back in time a little bit to when Sigma wasn't in the game. We need to look at the Overwatch League Stage 4, where Role Lock was added in. A lot of teams ran Orisa and then Roadhog/D.Va depending on who they were. This meant that they only had one barrier to protect their team from. And no teams ran stuff like Winston along with the Orisa or Reinhardt. It was always a Roadhog or a D.Va in the majority of cases at least. Maybe there was a Wrecking Ball trying to stall a point hero there. The point is because there was only one barrier on this lineup, you could go and try and break the enemy's barrier. That was a strategy to put a lot of pressure onto the enemy team. And so the support lineup changed from Lucio and Moira to Baptiste and Zen. This is what Moth from the San Francisco Shock said to us at the Overwatch League Grand Finals as to why this was played. Just to hear it from the horse's mouth.
The support duo defines a lot how your team takes fights. So if you're playing Lucio Moira, that means you really want to play aggressive and push past the enemy shields. This meta, Orisa Sigma is really dominant, so if you're playing Lucio Moira, it's to get up in the enemy's face. But if you're playing a different support duo, if you're playing something like Baptiste Zen, Baptiste Mercy, Baptiste Ana, that means you want to take a slower approach to the game. You want to burn through the shields. You don't want to take a fight right away. You want to play the high ground, play angles, and just poke the opponent.
So that's why Zen, Baptiste started off being relatively popular by yourself and stuff, but then the more the time has gone on, you've sort of gone, we can't really play that anymore because we're not playing to break shields when you're running Doomfist and stuff. The whole idea, I suppose, shifts. Is that right, would you say?
Yeah, that's exactly it. In Stage 4, the dominant tank duos were like Ursa Hog and Ursa Diva. So you have your one 900 HP shield on like a 8 or 9 second cooldown, which means Zen Baptiste is really good because they can add a lot of shield pressure, break the shield, and start the fight. But if you have Ursa and Sigma, then that shield pressure doesn't really matter. There's too many shields, so Lucio Moira is good because you just have to go past them anyway.
It's fair to say in a lot of cases that if the enemy team isn't running Orisa Sigma all of the time, then the impact and the viability of Baptiste goes up dramatically, more than any other hero in the game I feel, other than say maybe Widowmaker or Hanzo. And so when it comes to competitive and having teams just not run what is truly meta and having a bit more freedom of choice of what you can play, I'd say Baptiste shines a lot doing that, as seen in previous metas. But I don't know about you, but the majority of games that I have don't have an Orisa. They have the likes of a Reinhardt, or no main tank with a barrier at all, in which case it's free game for you to play as Baptiste. Now, you can't really play him purely as a DPS option, of course, but the amount of freedom that you can get on this hero from the damage that you can do and the pressure that you can put on people is definitely nothing to be shaken at, especially if you have pretty decent aim. You take complete control of the map, and the abilities and utility that you could bring to the table, your team will love you for it. Not to mention that Baptiste's healing output is also very, very good, at least one of the more consistent. Whilst you don't have the same burst potential as say a Moira, you don't end up in a jeopardized position where you just run out of juice like a Moira can. You can just reload, take time to sort of gather your resources, and keep that tempo of healing consistent, which in a similar sense not many of us could do. But at the same time, you can have 1v1s versus literally everybody and do quite well, even against some of the DPS options. Because of all of the reasons that I mentioned, I think a good amount of us would put money on Blizzard nerfing double barrier more to the point where it's just not as effective. If that happens, then I can definitely see Baptiste becoming the best option to play either as an off or main support because of all of the reasons that I just mentioned. But that's just one of the aspects of what makes Baptiste good. The second is the map pool. The map pool is really good for Baptiste at the moment. 2CP is really good for him. There's lots of high ground that you could jump off, especially first points on the likes of Temple of Anubis, Volskaya 2 for sure. Hollywood and Eichenwald all have perches of high ground that you could use and long sight lines where you could do decent amount of damage. King's Row not so much, it's more flat. Control is the only area that I realistically wouldn't play Baptiste. I just think Moira Lucio is more impactful in those situations, even if teams aren't running double barrier, and that is definitely seen in Stage 4 of the Overwatch League 2. Again, before Sigma was added in, teams ran Moira Lucio to be a bit more scrappy on points, so that's why I don't think Baptiste isn't very good on them. But in every other area, certainly the escort maps as well, that's where he shines. But like I keep mentioning, you have purchased a high ground. The rocket boots are a big aspect of what makes Baptiste great. Again, in this gameplay of Moth, once they take control of the point, you can just see how easy it is for Moth to keep his team alive and also put pressure on from one specific spot, an area where the majority of supports can't get to provide the same amount of healing. And in those areas, that's where Baptiste absolutely trumps the likes of Ana, who is also viewed as a very strong support for similar reasons. You don't want to be as far away when you play Baptiste as you would be Ana. You want to be very close to your team to be able to jump down on him, and of course in range of your shift ability, but just having that vertical edge makes him such an amazing hero to play, and also incredibly fun. In the higher tiers, this just doesn't really work though, because more players start to run Orisa Sigma. It's a given, it's meta, you can't really play anything else. But if you're in like, I don't know, even Masters and below, where people don't play Orisa Sigma all of the time, that gives you a window to play Baptiste, and the impact that you can have is pretty major, even if you're not very good on it. I also think he's great to play because he helps improve your aim, you have a lot of good abilities, and I feel like you just learn a lot playing this hero. And I think for those players that don't really like to pick up DPS options, that's a really good thing. I think a lot of that focus is really gone. You can definitely tell I've been playing a lot of CSGO recently because just aim is such an important aspect to me now, but that's kind of what Overwatch misses at the moment. So I'm really for like a Baptiste meta, and I think he's really good in the right situations. We've seen it in the past, we know exactly what's going to happen if we see less double barrier, and with this buff, Baptiste becomes really strong. Hopefully this buff does wonders to his pick rate and is used a little bit more, but this is definitely the easiest situation to work out when to use it. But I do want to hear what you guys have to say. Also, Also, speaking of which, I did mention the map pool. I did want to give my 2 cents on this very quickly, as I really like the addition of a map pool in this competitive season. The only thing I don't like is the chance to have the same game mode over and over again. It seems quite high. I think I've played about 20 games this season so far, and about half of them have been Control. Some of them have been like 3 games in a row of Control, and it's exhausting. But the problem is if there's a system put in place that you are less likely to get the same game mode in a row, then that might increase your queue times. So I did want to raise a question to you, especially as we get into Season 20, where we may have Horizon Paris in the 2CP map. Would you like to see a system put in place where you're less likely to have the same game mode in a row, or quicker queue times? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching. Go play Baptiste, he's very good right now, unless you're on Control or playing against Double Barrier. Take care, see you next time.